Dear esteemed BUSN 1330 students, last week we discussed conflict. Now we're going to proceed with the next slide, slide 4, dealing with the negative side of conflict. Conflict is destructive, and these are the reasons that you can look at and see the symptoms of how it can be destructive. Number 1, the resolution ends with a winner and a loser, meaning someone has to win and someone has to lose. That's destructive. You want to make sure that everyone wins. The next one is it keeps you away from doing your work or feeling good about yourself or others. This is very destructive because now this is affecting your self-efficacy and your self-esteem. You want to make sure that you recognize those characteristics. Number 3, it undermines your morale, meaning that, again, it goes back to your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about others. Your morale can be affected based on your own self-esteem and your self-perception. Number 4, the individuals involved act aggressively. So you want to make sure you look at those signs and symptoms on how you act and how you react. And number 5, it is harmful to an individual's emotional or physical well-being. Sometimes when you're in a conflict and that conflict is going on for a very long time, a very long period of time, that conflict can start affecting your emotional well-being as well as your physical well-being. Emotionally, you may have anxieties. It may occur with you having emotional, I would say sadness would be one of the ways that can affect your emotional well-being. You start feeling depressed. That's an emotional well-being. So these are the things you have to look at, what causes harmful to your emotional well-being. Now, as far as the physical well-being, start having heart disease, diabetes, physically start gaining weight or losing weight, hair loss. All of these things are affected by conflict. Now, the next one is it increases absenteeism and a high turnover rate. When you're out and not present, conflict is destructive when it causes a person to want to stay away and keep being absent, or not want to even return to work, or leave work completely, or leave the whole situation. The group that you're working with, you just say, I'm done, I quit. So it causes people to want to quit or just not even be present. That's a conflict that is destructive. The next slide. See here. There are types of conflict, and I will go over each one of them. And the first type of conflict is the simple conflict. This is something that can be just simple. It can be a bit of information that is not that serious, and you can easily resolve that type of conflict. Maybe if you forgot to submit an assignment, and then that's simple, and then you had time to realize it in time, and you go, oh, let me go ahead and reach out to the instructor to let the instructor know before the deadline. And then that's something simple that can be easily resolved. Now, the false conflict, that's a conflict that that does not really exist. It's perceived as a conflict, but it's really not a conflict. It could have been prevented because it's not really a conflict because it's false. Now, the continuation, ego conflict. This is the most damaging type of conflict because it damages relationships. Individuals view winning or losing as a measure of their expertise and personal worth. Values and beliefs conflict. This is when you have a different value system or a different belief system from someone else, a difference in opinions, a difference in world views or your viewpoints. Those can be a conflict. For example, someone may disagree with the welfare programs that are available for people who are unable to provide for themselves. And some people may say, hey, we should not have welfare programs. Those are just examples of difference of belief systems and difference of values. That's just an example that this screen is telling you, okay, on this PowerPoint. And it often cannot be resolved because you cannot change someone else's personal values system or belief system. So you cannot resolve that when you have a different belief system. Can conflict be prevented? These are some practices that can help you prevent conflict. Number one, build constructive relationships. You want to be able to work with everyone, so you want to make sure that you build a constructive and positive relationship with everyone you come in contact with. Discuss problems before they escalate to a conflict. Now, sometimes you got to use tact and be wise about how you discuss the problem. Be very tactful. Make sure that you ask questions so that the other person will not be offensive. So you want to make sure that the conflict does not escalate by you discussing what the problem is at hand, not the person, but the problem. Watch your language when you are annoyed, because that can show up in your facial expressions. Stop and think before you react. That is so important when preventing conflict. You want to stop, think, and start looking through the lens of the other person. Look through their point of view and their eyes. Look through their lens to see what they're thinking, and again, you can ask questions to get an idea of what that person is thinking before you react. How is conflict resolved? Resolved properly, conflict can bring positive results. Number one, it can lead to personal and professional growth. Again, it must be resolved positively and properly. It can affect change, positive change. It can lead to new ways of thinking and behaving, because there are several different ways of thinking and behaving. But if you have a conflict that is resolved properly, you'll have a different point of view and say, I didn't think of it that way. Or I should have behaved this way now that I know what I know now. Also, motivate people to participate. People will gravitate to people who resolve conflict properly or positively. They are eager to get some ideas from them, see what their point of views are, because they're motivated. They're not there to make them feel negative or feel sad, but they motivate them to make them feel empowered. That's what we want, empowerment. So if you can motivate people to participate, you're empowering people to participate, and that's resolving conflict properly. Support good decision making. This is so important. There are good decision making skills that you can do and you can participate in that help support resolving the conflict. Again, good decision making, because there is a bad decision making, so you want to support good ones. Clarify important issues. You want to make sure that everyone has clarity. Make sure that it's clear, that the issues at hand are clear. Let's go back to an example here. Clarify important issues. What is important is that everyone now is using the guidelines that are given to us from our political arena, from the president, from the governor, where they're giving clear instructions, very clear instructions on what we should do to prevent us from getting the coronavirus. That's clarify important issues. We should stay away from large crowds. That's one example to resolve conflict properly. We should wash our hands. Those examples are guidelines that are given to us. So these are very good examples that can be given to us to make good decision-making skills, clarify important issues, and build cooperation among people. People in your network, people in your family, people in your circle, your relationship with your friends, build, and co-workers and peers. Build cooperation among people. Now, there are phases of conflict, and I will discuss them. The first one is spark, and as you can just think of the word spark, that's something that's very intense, and that's like someone out of control when they have a spark, and it just like really go off real fast. Spark, an argument can be a spark. So these are things that you know that's one phase of the conflict. And it's it's something triggering incident that brings conflict to surface. That's a spark. Also, a spark could be a simple misunderstanding. Now, the next phase is fanning the flames. Just say the spark has already been triggered. Now the flames are out and they're in the open. And then instead of the flames going down, the next phase is someone who fans the flame so it can go and explode even more. That conflict increases intensity and it gets out of control. So you want to stay away from fanning the flames, and taking sides is the next phase. You don't want to take sides because, again, that's about who wins and who loses. Conflict begins with two individuals, but it does not take long for others to get involved. Okay? The phase of conflict are showdown. This is where the most volatile phase. It's very destructive and confrontational. This person is out of control. Showdown means they didn't pass the spark and they didn't pass all the phases of getting out of control and the intensity. They're now confrontational. It ends with a standoff. It could end with a standoff or a stalemate. Now, resolution adjustment. This is the best phase right here because you're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to resolve a conflict and you're making adjustments. I like this phase. A decision is reached that is agreeable to all. Everyone agreed to the decision. Have a clear conscience, and that's the best type of phase right there. Steps are taken to put into action the agreed upon settlement. Everyone come together and say, these are the steps we're going to take, and this is what we're going to put into action, and everyone agrees. That's what they're doing right now with the decisions that are being made to make sure that everyone is safe in the community, globally and locally. They're making a decision that everyone can agree upon, and that steps are needed and taken that everyone can agree upon and make a settlement. Now, when is conflict resolved? Conflict can be resolved only when both parties agree to cooperate. You have to have agreement. You have to have unity, because disagreement is not going to solve the problem. But when you have agreement and everyone is in agreement, then you can resolve the conflict. And believe the problem has a solution. When everyone agrees to cooperate and believe that the problem has a solution, then you can resolve the conflict. And this, the third one, is really, really not is simple, but yet profound. Recognize that a difference of opinion is not a personal attack. Just because someone has a difference of opinion does not mean they're personally attacking you. You have to make sure that you separate opinions from facts. Remember, opinion is just an opinion. A fact has substance. It can be substantiated. It can be validated. And there's it's going to be validity to fact. It's going to be something that you can find proof for fact. But opinion is just an opinion, and it does not mean that it's a personal attack. Respect the opinions of others. because just because you disagree with their opinion, you still need to respect the opinions of all involved in that conflict. Make an effort to be patient